at the time that we moved to Carmel, we moved into a home on Santa Rita that we rented, and it was owned by a German-American doctor who was a colonel in the U.S. Army, and Dr. Werner Punt, and we had, it was a three-bedroom house, two-car garage. We rented it for, I think we started out at $70 a month, and then we were such good tenants, they reduced it to $65, and then they reduced it to $60, and we had that house for at $60 a month for 15 years, and moved down to where the family now is established on the south end of town, which was in the county at that time, and was the Walker Track, and it was then brought into the city, and we have been living there since the late 50s. It was really great living on Santa Rita because you were equidistant between the beach and when we went to high school, walking up to high school, but we walked to school, and from Santa Rita to Sunset, we walked on dirt roads. They were not all paved. There were empty lots, so we could do shortcuts through the lots. And there were two stables. One, the Hodges, which became went down to Mission Ranch, on the corner of Winipro and Ocean, and then Betty Green's stables one block up. And we would go in and muck out the stables, and she'd let us ride, and we'd ride with her down to the beach, and up and down the beach. We'd go down the Del Mar bank, and that was great, although my sister then continued to ride out at Pebble Beach. And actually we had an empty lot that was right next to our house, and we kept taking my father's blue books that he had left over from his days in Trinity College, and we would design a stable because we thought we would have a horse and put the horse in the stable, and we couldn't understand why we couldn't have a stable in downtown Carmel. But it was fun designing it all the way along, and it was, Betty Green was a character. She was the daughter of Green and Green, the well-known architect whose home is here, and it was a real experience because she was she catered to the children, and she was our stable mother, I guess you would say. But she had the best carrots, I remember. We'd eat the carrots instead of the horses eating them. But we had a great time. And then just, Scenic was a two-way street at that time, a two-way street for automobiles, and there was no Beach Bluff pathway, so just going down to the beach, we didn't have the issue of beach fires. I don't remember many picnics on the beach, but Ernest Cowley, who was a teacher at Sunset, had his ceramic studio and where just beneath where the Bach office is right now, and he taught everybody how to make kites, and we had wonderful kite festivals, and you could always tell what the prevailing winds were because you'd see the kites sticking still in the trees down on the beach along the pathway. But it was a very easy life, and the only theater in town was where the Carmel Plaza is now, and a Saturday afternoon matinee was a big deal, and it cost 25 cents to go to the matinee, and we were not good children in that we would have some of our friends buy a ticket and go in, and then they would go up to the mezzanine and open the door, and then we'd climb up the outside. And when my aunt, who was my mother's older sister, found out about this, she was horrified, and so she would send me $1 every month so I could go to 4 matinees. She had no children, never understanding that wasn't the point of whether you could afford it or not. So we did a lot of babysitting and things to earn spare money, but things were really quite free because it was such a beautiful spot. And of course, growing up during the war, it was, that's when they started Carmel by the Sea, Monterey by the Smell, and Pacific Grove by God, because PG was a dry city. But in all seriousness, you could hear the howitzers out at night, practicing out at Fort Ord, and you had to drive with your lights dimmed. There were fake gun emplacements out in Pebble Beach with the real guns back in the forest, and so we were very mindful of what was going on. You know, we had victory gardens, and we had, you know, I ate more Swiss chard than I can remember, count probably. But we worked in the garden, and our parents paid us 33 1/3 cents an hour to work and do things around town, around the house. So we always worked for 3 hours, so we'd get $1. And then we had big fences between the Neal's yard and our yard of just full of blackberries and boysenberries. So, you know, we could eat off the back more or less. We had a wonderful oak tree in our backyard that looked like an airplane, and we you know, we had a cockpit and we had a tail gunner and so forth. I don't know if that oak tree is still there, but it was just perfect as a toy for kids because it wasn't that difficult to climb, because it was one of those that sort of spread out. And there was a lot between the Neal, a lot in the sense of a piece of property, between the Neals and where Barbara Livingston's family lived, and that was our basketball court. So we had our basketball court right there, and we just walked through everybody's yard and got there. And it was, you know, it was a very, we could sit in our living room with the windows open and hear the music and productions from the Forest Theater, or we could walk down a few houses and walk along the Jocelyn Trail right behind the back fence and just sit there and watch it. Or we could go be a member of the cast and participate in what was going on at the Forest Theater. So that was a wonderful thing that you could just absorb. And then as we got into high school, and the movies were also then shown at what is now Pac Rep, it was, you know, it was something that we had as a substitute for when we lost the theater up here at where the plaza is. So, and then there was a movie theater on Dolores in between 7th and 8th on the west side, and those were the last theaters in town that we had for movies at that time. So that was something a little different. And then when this was turned into, when they built the new All Saints, and this, the picture that's out by the door shows what it looked like when there was a bell tower and a rose window out here. But as I said, it was very humbling experience to be sitting up there when you knew it had been the altar. And as again, the small world would have it, Father Seckham, who was the priest at the time, when I left Stanford and went to school in Geneva, graduate school, he knew the person who was the pastor at the Episcopal Church in Geneva. So it was just sort of like being passed over from one family to another. It was really neat. And as children, I remember at sunset being let out of school to walk up to San Carlos Street to see General Stilwell's ashes being scattered from a plane in the Carmel Bay, because he lived right down on the point, and that was you know, that was a historic experience. And of course we had the Sandlot baseball on the north lot. That was where we played baseball before we had the high school and the whole complex there at the sports complex. We used to have volunteer firemen, and if there was a gasoline spill, if somebody had, you know, not turned it off and it was gas running over, they had to wash it down and so forth. So during the day, during the workday, it was not unusual to see these volunteer firemen running with their white aprons from Kips Market or wherever up to the fire station to you know, to help wash down whatever. And then on Thursday nights at 7 o'clock, they had a rehearsal, training, whatever. And excuse me, you could hear that whistle, that horn. It was like a foghorn all over town, and it got to be called the elephant in heat because the noise was so elephantine, I guess. You just heard it all over.